Well, we're in the midst of a government shutdown, recording this
We are.
October 7th. I'm not exactly sure when this is going live, but you've told me that this will be a valuable episode regardless of whether the government is still shut down or not. I don't pay much attention to this kind of stuff. I don't work with the government. I work with a lot of small business owners. I'm sure it can affect my clients in some aspect, but I usually typically feel like it's going to get resolved and it's just a bunch of hoopla that I don't need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me what's happening with
Why should I
why are we
care?
shut
Right?
down?
Yeah. This is
Well, first, even just what is it? Like, what's
okay.
going on, and why is this happening?
So, again, as you know, on this show, we try to be Switzerland when we're talking about important issues. And you know, this is no spoiler alert here for our listeners, but the United States Congress is divided basically right down the middle. And I'm not sure, Khalil, they could agree on a lunch order for the day, let alone key legislation. So here we are. It is like you have a budget at your house, and I have one at mine, and you have one in your business, and I have one in mine. There's a budget that the United States government has to operate off of. You can project what you're going to be taking in income or in revenue, usually based on tax projections and forecasts and historical data. And you have to write a budget about what you can spend. And by the way, it has been 25 years during the Clinton administration, the year 2000, planning for the 2001 budget, but it's been 25 years since the United States has been able to present and agree on a balanced budget in Congress. So we've been in this slow death spiral of disagreeing and disagreeing more, and we'll do a continuing resolution, and that'll happen for 9 months or whatever. But eventually, we're seeing more and more of these continuing resolutions that are happening for shorter and shorter periods of time. And so we are finding ourselves in one of those moments right now where there is not an agreement, and the government has basically said, we can't agree. We're out of money. We're shutting down. We're not going to kick the can down the road. I think one side, the Republicans, the R's, as we usually call them, is saying there's been a continuing resolution for the last 13 times this has been done. Democrats always agreed. We need 7 weeks. Let's agree, and then we can hash out any differences for final budget. So, by the way, point of parliamentary procedure. Most of these continuing resolutions have fixed, finalized, and decisions made sometime in November before the real deadline of December 31st. It's on a calendar year. That's when the budget, and there's 6 or 7 budgets for big things like military is one, and international spending is another. And so they all have to be agreed on, and get ready to vote on December 31st. But the CRs have to be done and finished, and you've got to be pretty close to getting this done by some point in November. We're not even close on any of them. So the Republicans are going, hey, man, why aren't you agreeing? We've always agreed in the past. And the other side, the Democrats, are saying, well, you guys have eliminated anything related to healthcare, which, by the way, is an important component that is expiring.
Yeah.
So we're asking you to, before we sign on a continuing resolution, we need to make some decisions about healthcare. One side says no, the other said yes, they can't agree. So this is now where this is. The government is closed. We are in day 7 today of a government shutdown. So I started making some phone calls to the exhibit house owners and business leaders in the trade show game. And to a person, Khalil, out of 10 polled, there's really not one that says their business is being directly affected. So why are we talking about this? In other
Yeah, that's
words,
where I stand.
their buy-sell relationship with their clients, the transactional relationship of projects, does not appear. I did find one that said we had a client drop out of a show. It was a military show, and they're going to be unable to go because of logistical support and personnel that's currently, furloughed during this time. Other than that, everybody else is business as usual with all the shows and all the different vertical markets.
Okay.
So
So why should we care if it's not, for most of the business owners that you're talking to in the exhibit industry, It's not directly affecting them. Why should we really care right now if this is, not close to being resolved, but probably going to be resolved?
So the consensus is, while there is no direct impact today on this current shutdown to businesses in our space, there is major concern by all business leaders and owners that this inability for them to agree just on a continuing resolution for a few weeks to be able to negotiate the tougher issues is just another nail in sort of the proverbial coffin of our inability to trust our elected officials and our institutions, which has much farther reaching consequences. Um, Business, as you know, is all about a risk reward relationship and measuring those things. To a person that I spoke to, every single one feels the business climate, the risk level is increasing significantly through a series of things that have been happening. And it isn't just this year or this month. This is really in the last, let's go back and say it's in the last several or more years, right? If you think about the things that impact our industry, um, economic policy, things like tariffs, tax policy. If we look at things like travel, I've said this before, 30% of the robust U.S. trade show and business event market is based on international participants. 30% of all those folks that are exhibitors or attendees come from other countries. If we make it harder for them to travel, we suffer in our industry from a business standpoint. And we see tons of international relationship disruptions. There's confusion also in and a lot of disagreement about the domestic labor policy. We know we have a shortage of labor in our industry, right? But we are getting mixed signals from our government about what that policy is going to be. Yeah, it's great that we had some success with expanding the Pell Grant to trade skills, training, and certification, and 529 savings accounts can be used. But I've heard from 2 Chicago exhibit house business leaders that said, I'm not worried about the shutdown. I'm more worried about in the industrial complex our business is located, an ICE truck or a group of officers showing up and raiding our warehouses and freaking out the workforce that we have that are legal citizens, or maybe there are some undocumented. I'm unclear. That's going to be more disruptive, they're saying, to not just any immediate workers that are caught up in that, but what it's doing to the culture and the concern. So hadn't thought of that, but that's a real thing. Again, I was constantly talked about the tariff policy that is hurting the industry. The lack of addressing the debt, which is just it doesn't matter which party's in power. That we know, and the cost of the interest. And there's a day of reckoning coming. I think most believe there's confusion still in variables in the lending market about interest rates and the ability to borrow. Wage inflation is still a negative thing, and maybe in not as many pockets, but it's certainly in key positions in our industry. All of these things, Khalil, can negatively affect our clients' spending habits. That's where I think that the thought of risk is elevating when you see those types of conditions being unpredictable or worsening in some cases. And then when the government just shuts itself down because it can agree on basic things, all of those things really set off alarms and warning bells
Yeah.
for business owners.